Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Anderson Healey Show. This is the Mountain America Credit Union Sun Devil Radio Network's weekly program that spotlights Arizona State University Sun Devil athletics. I'm Tim Healey, the radio play-by-play voice of the Sun Devils. With me, as always, ASU Vice President for University Athletics, Ray Anderson. Good day, Ray. Good to see you.
Good to see you always, and good day to you and to all of our ASU fans. Tim?
We have a pair of guests joining us on this week's show. They're both head coaches whose team's fall sports are already up and running at Arizona State. Seventh-year Sun Devil women's soccer coach Graham Winkworth will drop by for a visit. His team has lost just one of its 8 matches so far this season, and he'll update us on his 23 ASU soccer team. So too will second-year head cross-country coach Ryan Ray, who will be by for a visit, and he'll give us a preview of his ASU distance runners in 2023. But we begin this week, as we usually do each fall, with the football recap of the week. And unfortunately for Coach Kenny Dillingham's Arizona State Sun Devils, a loss in Game 2 of the season last Saturday night at home, 27-15 to the Oklahoma State Cowboys. A year from now, that's going to be a Big 12 conference rivalry matchup. But for now, it's the final Pac-12 versus Big 12 matchup, ASU and Oklahoma State. And the Cowboys got the better of it last week, 27-15. And Ray, it was kind of similar to the opening game against Southern Utah in that the Sun Devils played pretty well in the first half. In fact, they led 15-7 late in the half, 15-10 at halftime. But as was the case in the opener, a sluggish second half for the offense, Arizona State unable to score after halftime.
Yeah, and that's part of this learning. You know, this is a program that some folks don't like the term rebuild, but we know we're in a rebuild with a first-year head coach, and it's going to take some time. And so you just got to be patient. You like what you see in the first half. You want to see them be able to make the appropriate adjustments and come out in the games ahead and put 2 halves to make a whole. And so I think we're well on our way to being able to do that. This week coming up with Fresno State will be another challenge. But it was ironic that you have one of the most senior experienced head coaches in the country in Gundy.
Mike Gundy,
going into his 18th or 19th year with 17 bowl appearances in a row. And then you have Kenny in his second game as a head coach. So you see that it takes some time, and I think Gundy even admitted and said some wonderful, encouraging words to Kenny that
he did. Yeah.
You know, it was year 4 before it clicked for me. My first year was ugly. And so, you know, it just gives you a little bit of balance in how you have to think through these things. But you want the win, but we played competitively, certainly that first half, and had some good defense, I think, throughout the game. We learned some lessons, and we'll get better going forward.
My take is I think Kenny is or wants to be where Mike Gundy is at some point. I think 19 years from now, hopefully we'll be talking about head coach Kenny. I don't know if I'll still be around, but hopefully we'll be talking about head coach Kenny Dillingham at Arizona State. Mike Gundy is an alum, a former Cowboy football player, and here he is 19 years into his tenure as the head coach, and a highly successful tenure it has been. And certainly I think Kenny Dillingham has the investment in this place that he would like to have a length of stay at his job now, the likes of which Coach Gundy has.
Yeah, and these are unique circumstances when a true alum who is based in the community can come back and be the head coach. And so I certainly believe that Kenny has the aspirations to be here for a long, long time. And if he can do what Gundy has done at his alma mater, that would be fabulous for this community, because Gundy is there for his alma mater because he's also won on a consistent basis at a high level. We'd all love to see that for Kenny Dillingham and the ASU Sun Devil community.
We sure would. And unfortunately, Saturday's game got off to a frighteningly inauspicious start for Arizona State. On the second Sun Devil offensive play from scrimmage, senior offensive right tackle Emmett Boley went down with a horrifying injury to his lower left leg. He is lost for the season. And boy, that offensive line in general has just been ravaged with injuries just 2 weeks into the season. But that was a scary sight to see Emmett down. I talked to some of his coaches and players at practice this week, and one lineman, Ben Bray, told me that as they all circled around and knelt down around Emmett as he was being treated, there wasn't an O-lineman that didn't shed a tear at some moment in seeing Emmett down with such a serious injury.
Well, they are a brotherhood, and these linemen, these offensive linemen in particular, are a very tight group. I think just in that offensive lineman world, they spend a lot of time, and they know they depend on each other. And Emmett came in here as a transfer, has really established himself as a senior leader and a big brother to some of the younger linemen. So yes, it hurt tremendously, and so you feel so badly for the young man that he got to play 2 plays in that very important game and goes down. So we wish him well on his recovery. Don't know if he is going to be able to come back and hopefully play an additional year. We shall see. But it was a tough loss, and so the offensive line overall has been beat up with injuries. And you know what? It's big-time college football, and there's no team in the country right now that isn't dealing with some sort of injury. But certainly our offensive line has been set back, and now we have to come back with a good performance this week.
And against a good opponent, the Fresno State Bulldogs, who have the second longest active winning streak in the Football Bowl subdivision. The Bulldogs are 2-0 this year, defeated Eastern Washington in overtime, 34-31 in Fresno last Saturday. They are 2-0 this year, 11 consecutive wins. Only Georgia in the FBS has a longer ongoing winning streak, 19 in a row, than does Fresno State. And the Bulldogs are coached by a guy we're familiar with, Jeff Tedford. For years was the head coach at California and did an outstanding job at Cal from 2002 to 2012. And he has always been a tough opponent for Arizona State. Tedford coach teams at Cal and Fresno State are 9-2 all-time against ASU, and hopefully, Ray, that result can get reversed a little bit on Saturday.
We need to reverse that result. Coach Tedford is a fine coach, and Fresno State has been a good program for a long time. You cannot take those folks for granted at all, because they'll come in and spank you around a little bit. So it's going to be a good matchup, a tough matchup here at home. We need our fans to come out in significant numbers. We need more than what we had last week and the week before. And with the weather cooling down a little bit, hopefully they will respond. But we need them here at Fresno State, because Fresno State is coming to play. But we'll be ready for them.
They're a good team. These two teams met in the Las Vegas Bowl in 2018, with Fresno State winning that game 31-20. But interestingly, this will be the first regular season matchup between these two programs since the 1940s. We hope to see you here. If you can't make it, the Mountain America Credit Union Sun Devil Radio Network has got you covered, as we'll have wall-to-wall coverage beginning at 5 p.m. on Saturday evening with the Sun Devil Tailgate Show, hosted by Jeff Munn and Kevin Turner. And then 1987 Rose Bowl MVP Jeff Van Raphorst will join Kevin and me for the play-by-play call of the game, with kickoff set for 7:40 on Saturday night, ASU and Fresno State at Mountain America Stadium, the football home of the Sun Devils. Our other lead story this week, once again, the wins keep on coming for Sun Devil volleyball. First-year head coach J.J. Van Neal's squad is now off to a 9-0 start in this 2023 season. That is tied for the 4th best start in the history of the ASU volleyball program. The Sun Devils won all 3 of their matches last week at the Lumberjack Classic up at Northern Arizona University in Flagstaff. The Sun Devils not only won, they swept all 3 matches, defeating NAU, Boise State, and Stephen F. Austin 3-0. And Ray, of their 9 wins on the season, volleyball has swept 6 of those matches. In fact, JJ's team has only dropped 3 sets all season long thus far. What a start, huh?
What a start indeed. And so Coach Van Neal and this team have really bonded very quickly. And so it's very gratifying to see our women off to such a great start. And, you know, volleyball is a big sport in this conference and this country collegiately. And so it's nice for us to be making some loud early noise, the 4th best start in program history. Brand new coach. He came in, brought some good folks in and to surround himself. The young women who came back, I think, are really energized. The new folks who have joined this roster are equally energized. So they're fun to watch. And when you talk about sweeps and only losing a handful of sets in volleyball, you're talking about superior performance. So we just got to keep it up.
Let's tell you about some of the stars on this volleyball team. The most valuable player of the Lumberjack Classic last week was junior outside hitter Jelly Sear. Jelly had double-digit kills totals in 2 of the 3 matches up at NAU. Seniors Roberta Robello and Shannon Shields were both named to the all-tournament team in Flagstaff. And then there's Old Reliable, the veteran leader of this team, senior Marta Levinska, who has now moved into 14th place on ASU's all-time list in career kills. She has 1,129 in her career, although her streak of matches with double-digit kills totals ended at 20 last weekend.
Oh yeah, this again, this roster and Levinsky. I mean, it's just amazing what she's able to do week in and week out. But what's nice is that you have across the board elite performance. It's not just one. You're starting to hear 2 or 3 names each week with outstanding performances, and that's what this is all about. Team performance, get you good results, and JJ's delivering.
Yeah.
And these young women are having fun doing it, by the way.
Now, volleyball's 9-0 start is outstanding in and of itself, but this note makes it even more compelling. Volleyball has yet to play a match at home this season. They have played all 9 of their matches on the road, and they're heading on the road again this weekend for a 4th consecutive weekend, headed to Memphis, Tennessee, where they will take part this weekend in the Beale Street Challenge, as they'll take on the University of Memphis, Little Rock, and Southern Mississippi this coming Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, September 14th through the 16th. The Sun Devils will finally play a match at home next week. It is their home and Pac-12 opener. It will be at Mullet Arena on a week from Thursday, September 21st, and guess who? The University of Arizona Wildcats provide the opposition.
Great home opener for us. Looking forward to it, and a great facility. And you know, you play them where they schedule you. And so if you're on the road for the first 3 or 4 weeks, so be it, particularly when you're sweeping and winning. It really doesn't matter. But it will be exciting to get our women back home for our first home match in conference and against U of A. Folks should come out because it's a beautiful, beautiful facility. And this team is ready to play.
Boy, 9-0. What a job J.J. Van Niel has done in the first few months of his tenure as the head volleyball coach at Arizona State. Another fall sport that's off to a solid start in 2023 is Sun Devil soccer, which has lost just 1 of its 8 matches so far this season. Coming up, we'll get a team preview from the 7th-year head coach of the Sun Devils as Graham Winkworth will join us. But first, let's take a timeout. This is the Anderson-Healey Show from the Mountain America Credit Union Sun Devil Radio Network. We continue now on the Anderson-Healey Show from the Mountain America Credit Union Sun Devil Radio Network. Alongside of ASU Athletic Director Ray Anderson, I'm Tim Healey, the radio play-by-play voice of the Sun Devils, and Ray and I are delighted that you joined us this week. Our guest on this segment is in his 7th season in charge of the Sun Devil women's soccer program at Arizona State, a program that is off to a solid start in 2023. With the Sun Devils having lost just 1 of the 8 matches that they have played so far, 4 wins and 3 ties. In fact, the Sun Devils' first and only loss of the season, a 1-0 defeat to Texas Tech this past Sunday in a match that was played in Tucson, snapped a remarkable 16-game unbeaten streak in regular season non-conference games for the Sun Devil soccer program, a streak that dated back to the 2021 season. It's always a pleasure to welcome Coach Graham Winkworth to the show. Great to see you, Graham. First time we've done this in person in a heck of a long time.
I know. Thanks for having me. I'm excited.
How would you summarize the way the season has gone for your girls on the pitch so far?
Pretty much how I expected. You know, we've got 20 freshmen and sophomores on this roster, and so that's 2/3 of our roster, which is so it's really, really young. And having graduated our top 3 scorers from last season and top 3 assists, who are all now playing, actually top 4, who are now all playing professional soccer. Excited for them to help them make the next step in their lives, but then we've got to find ways to replace those goals. And so delighted with the way we're doing certain things, particularly defensively, only conceding 3 goals in 8 games, but we've still got a lot of work to do offensively, which is the tough piece.
And one of the players you had to replace is arguably the greatest player in the history of the program and is the all-time leading scorer and goal scorer in Arizona State history, the great Nicole Douglas, Dougie as you always
Dougie,
used to
that's
call
right.
her. How challenging has it been to fill those large pair of shoes?
Yeah, it's impossible. We can't. You can't just bring in even Dougie as a freshman was not Dougie as a fifth-year senior. So you can't expect somebody to come in and replace her. So we have to find other ways to score goals, share the load a little bit, and that's what we've been doing. You know, we've been scoring goals from different parts of the field, but ultimately you can't replace not just one, but 3 or 4 top pros that graduated that year. But on a positive, when you've got so many freshmen and sophomores picking up significant minutes, it can only bode well for the long-term future of the program.
Yeah. Who are some of the players that are starting to pick it up? Your top goal scorer, Inasia Colonna, has already come up with 4 goals and 9 points so far this season.
Yeah, Ine started the season really well. She's got wonderful feet and a great creativity. So she started very well. We've got to hope that she can continue that in conference play. And then Liska Kalia is our captain. She's one of the best defenders in the Pac-12. She's excellent, and so have her back for a 5th year is key. And there's been some other great performances. I think Pauli Nellis is one of the best goalkeepers in the country, and she does some things both offensively and defensively that most players can't. And we've got some excellent freshmen as well, the likes of Emily Simpson and Savannah Maley, among others, that are really stepping up. So excited for the future for sure.
We talk about Pauli. She's been terrific in goal for you, hasn't she?
Yeah, Pauli's special, and she to be honest, she's not really had too much to do all season long. She's conceded before this weekend. She'd conceded 2 goals only, and then she pulled off probably her first major save of the season against Texas Tech, and then in the second half we conceded a goal off a set piece. So she's really not had too much to do, which is a credit to the people in front of her. But what she does also do is she starts our attack. When Pauli plays a little differently to most goalkeepers in that she's comfortable with the ball at her feet. So we play a little bit more dangerous. My wife doesn't like watching it. She gets nervous, but we'll play her in the back line sometimes as we build. And so effectively it's 11 against 10 on the field. And she's got better feet than half the field players, if I'm honest.
This is quite a run that you've had these last 2 years in non-conference play, hasn't it? What factors do you think have led to your team getting off to these good starts last couple of years?
Yeah, I didn't know it until you just read it, so I appreciate you telling me. I don't know. I've got an incredible staff. Both over the years, I've had the likes of Sugar and Chubby that have been fantastic for me, and now they've moved on with their careers. But the likes of Ross, Holly, and Ali do a wonderful job preparing the team during pre-season. So, despite a short pre-season that I would think needs to be longer, but when the NCAA eventually allows that, we only have a short 2 weeks, and I think I've got excellent coaches that really prepare the girls to start the season well. And it's not like we shy away from good teams as well. Texas Tech, we lose by 1 goal, but at the moment they're a top 10 team in the nation. So we're not where we need to be, but we're certainly moving in the right direction.
Now, this is the 2nd consecutive Anderson-Healey show in which women's soccer has been spotlighted, because last week we had a delightful visit with one of Coach Winkworth's players who also happened to play in the World Cup this past summer. Gabby Rennie, a Sun Devil, a senior forward from New Zealand, playing for her home country, in her home country, as many of the games in the World Cup were competed in New Zealand. And Gabby shared with us her experiences. What a feather in the cap, I would think it is, for your program to have one of your players so prominently featured on the world's biggest soccer stage.
Absolutely. It's wonderful for recruiting. We obviously have a big international connection, so when those players see players in the World Cup, it can only help us. But what an achievement for Gabby, because again, not only was she playing in a World Cup in her home country, but it was opening night of the World Cup, and she's coming off the bench in front of her family, in front of a packed out stadium, the most attended, I think, sporting event in New Zealand maybe ever, and certainly for on the women's side. And so what an incredible experience. And so I'm sure that she was just as excited to go down to Tucson last week and play for us, though.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. But how about that first game she played was a 1-0 win for New Zealand against Norway, the first ever World Cup win, men's or women's competition, for a New Zealand soccer team.
Yeah, wonderful, and she gets to be a part of that, and that's something that you're going to, sort of thing you tell your grandkids, such pride. So, and she's a lovely girl. I mean, an absolute incredible leader, and just a pleasure to have on our roster.
Yeah, for sure. Now, the Sun Devils are back home to host Colorado College this coming Friday evening at 7 p.m. at Sun Devil Soccer Stadium. And then Pac-12 play begins next week, and ASU will host Oregon State in their Pac-12 opener. How do you feel your team is primed, Graham, and ready to go for conference play?
It's going to be tough. I mean, we're playing probably one of the two strongest women's soccer conferences in the country. The national championship often comes from our league. You know, the current national champions are UCLA, and so we know we're going to be tested against many of the best teams. But at the same time, it's very exciting. Like, all these girls signed up because they wanted to play against the best. It's going to be a huge eye opener for some of them, but I'm very excited, and I believe that we can certainly compete with many of these teams. And as the experience is gained, as we move forward as well with ASU soccer, I believe we're going to be competing for conference championships and beyond.
Well, we're excited to watch it all unfold when conference play begins. But again, one more match this weekend at home against Colorado College in the non-conference portion of the schedule. Always great to visit with you, Graham. Best of luck this fall.
Appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Arizona State head soccer coach Graham Winkworth, our guest here on the Anderson Healey Show. Up next, an ASU cross-country preview coming up, courtesy of second-year head coach Ryan Ray. This is the Anderson Healey Show from the Mountain America Credit Union Sun Devil Radio Network. Now, these messages. Welcome back to the Anderson Healey Show from the Mountain America Credit Union Sun Devil Radio Network. I'm Tim Healey, the radio play-by-play broadcaster for ASU football, men's basketball, and baseball, and your host for our weekly get-togethers alongside of Arizona State Athletic Director Ray Anderson. Our next guest on this week's show is in his second season of his second tour of duty at Arizona State and his first season as the full-time head coach of the Sun Devil cross-country program. As the program's interim head coach 1 year ago, he helped lead his ASU distance runners to 14 personal best times and multiple notable finishes, and looks to build on that success this year. We're happy to welcome Coach Ryan Ray to the Anderson Healey Show. Ryan, it's great to see you, bud.
Nice to meet you, Tim. Pleasure.
Thanks for coming on with us. How would you describe where your program is now this year compared to, say, 12 months ago at this time?
Yeah, well, it's really coming along. We've lost some low sticks in cross country. The old way of scoring was with popsicle sticks. So the top runner would get a low stick, and then you count as you long. And we lost those low sticks.
Right.
But the rest of the team has really stepped up, done a lot of great training, and with evidence of how we started at George Kite, we're in a really good spot. Really excited about it.
What have been your points of emphasis with your men and women this fall? I read a quote, an article on the team where one of your runners was basically talking about how much she appreciates the attention to detail that you provide your runners.
Yeah, absolutely. The old saying is the people without a vision will perish. And so coming on board last year and taking over the team, there has been a little bit of inconsistency with our coaches, a lot of high turnover. Great kids, though, and they just needed that consistency in the detail. I was lucky and blessed to grow up with a father who's really successful and taught me the way. And I've been under a lot of great coaches as well. Corey Immels at Boise State, and Pat Henner that was here before, and details is very important when it comes to the training. So you get the details in, you're consistent with the training, then things start to take off.
You mentioned your dad, Irv Ray, just an outstanding distance coach. He mentored many All-Americans and Olympic champions during his time. What are some of the ways he's influenced you in terms of the way you coach? Yeah,
well, going back to the details, having your X's and O's in place, knowing the true how to execute the training plan, knowing the X's and O's, but also coaching the whole athlete is where things really get special.
Yeah.
So learning from him, he coached American record holders, several U.S. champions, and so that, for lack of a better word, the X's and O's, the training. Is crucial, but coaching the whole athlete, especially with today and age, with our student athletes today, that's when things start to get special.
Yeah. As Ryan referenced a moment ago, his team has already competed once. The Saturday of Labor Day weekend, the Sun Devils took part in the George Kite Invitational up in Flagstaff, Arizona, competing against their rivals from the Grand Canyon State, NAU, the University of Arizona and Grand Canyon, and competing at 7,000 feet as the elevation in Flagstaff, and NAU, a powerhouse cross-country program. That had to have been a good experience just to have your kids compete in those conditions against that kind of competition.
Yeah, unbelievable experience. Very grateful, Coach Mike Smith at NAU to invite us up. It's kind of like the Arizona State Championship.
Yeah.
Several community colleges from Arizona, D3, NEI schools, and then all the D1 schools come and compete. It is not easy. It's 7,000 feet. Our team did well, training hard over the summer, and they were able to, they came up there and they competed very well.
Did you have to go up a few days early to acclimate, or talk about your athletes being able to compete at that altitude, which is not something that they're accustomed to, because they're usually training at about sea level, aren't they?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's a big change, and actually they found out years ago, a couple years ago, that the best way to do it is to go the day of.
Really?
If you start going even 24 hours in advance, the body starts producing more red blood cells, which creates fatigue, headache.
Wow.
And so if you go the day of, we literally showed up 90 minutes before the race.
Wow. Just
and
bust up that day.
Bust up that day and had a really good day. So it worked out for us.
That's interesting, because when we've competed in sports, football and men's basketball at the University of Colorado, it's funny to note how often they make note of the fact that you're at 5,280 feet altitude in Boulder.
Yep.
They try to, it's basically their home field advantage.
Home field advantage, yeah. I'll tell you what, the NAU team's ranked number 2 in the nation, and they certainly looked like that up there at 7,000 feet.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was great to compete with them. And in fact, a couple of our ladies scored in the top 10 and beat some of their top 7 girls.
Yeah, in fact, one of them, junior Claire DeGaio, finished 6th in the women's competition. And you had a man, Jonathan Estrada, a Desert Vista High School product, who finished 6th among the men. So you had some pretty good finishers up there.
We did. Yeah, Johnny stepped up big time. He's only a sophomore. Like you said, local product from Desert Vista. Very exciting. You know, Johnny wasn't a high-level runner out of high school, but he wasn't elite, right? To see him come in the program and make adjustments, get the training underneath him, and see him come back this summer and beat guys that beat him in high school.
Wow.
And then to go and compete with the top boys at NAU was pretty special. And then Claire, what can I say? You know, this is a girl from Washington who there's a transition of the freshman year was hard for her. I wasn't here at the time. And then her sophomore year it was a slow transition, but it shows you time after time, you buy into the program, you put in the work, special things can happen. So we saw huge PRs from them. It was really great.
What a great way for them to get their season started. Tell us about some of your other runners, kids that you think will be impact performers in your program this year.
Sure. So on the women's side, Sadie Harenga, she's a transfer from Calvin College. She's a PhD student here for the biology department. She's very busy, great young lady. She will be a major impact player for us as long as Mia Chavez. Mia's a transfer from University of Arizona. So we got the Wildcat up here. She out of high school, she was top 10 in the nation in the 1600 and the 800. Highly ranked, highly sought after, and yeah, both those ladies will make a big difference for us.
You mentioned Mia being a transfer from the University of Arizona. I know a fellow by the name of Ryan Ray who coached one year at the University of Arizona.
Yes, sir.
What was it, the 2021 academic year, I believe it was. What was that? I mean, you had been here, you go there, you come back here. Was there any degree of weirdness to all that, or what?
Yeah, you know, I will say when I was here, I was a volunteer coach. And then I was so grateful to Coach Harvey and Coach Bernard Legat to give me my first full-time job. I went down there. Loved my experience down there. Great community. I know we're not supposed to love our enemies of the South too much, but my experience was pretty special. Was able to recruit a lot of high-level athletes. Learned a lot. Had success coaching on my own. And Coach Dion Miller called me in August of last year and said, "Do you want to come on back?"
Yeah.
You know, I love ASU. I want to be a Sun Devil for life, so I was like, absolutely, I want to come back.
Well, you know, there is a history. There are some folks who have coached at both schools in various sports. Our good friend Vince Amy, a former terrific Arizona State football player, ended up as a coach down at the University of Arizona in football for a while and is now back here coaching at ASU on the staff of Kenny Dillingham. And conversely, Former Ohio State and NFL running back Scotty Graham was a longtime athletics administrator here at ASU, and he wanted to get into coaching, and he's now on the football staff of Jed Fish down at the U of A. So they're
a little back and forth.
You're part of a list. There have been guys that have done both. What are your goals for your program at Arizona State this year, Ryan?
You know, in a sense, when coming into this year, I truly thought it was going to be a rebuild year. Not a lot of recruiting was taking place before I took on, and I thought, hey, that's okay. We're going to coach up these kids. We're going to love on them and help them become great athletes and great student athletes. The women have stepped up. Really, really happy, really proud of them. I think our number one goal is always to beat Arizona. So we go down to Dave Murray at the end of the month.
That's right.
And try to beat them again.
That's your next competition, I think September 29th.
That's correct, yeah. You know, Arizona State hasn't beaten Arizona, men or women, since 2016, down at Dave Murray. So if we can go down there and get a win, it'd be fantastic. But just compete well, be good competitors, appreciate those that we compete against, and just to grow and learn. I think on the women's side, we can go on to regionals, the first rounds of NCAA championships, and do well. And on the guys' side, you know, it's come together, encourage each other, run for each other in practice, and see what we can put something special together. Because when you do that, when you run for each other, you train hard, things can really turn out well. So that's what I'm looking forward to then.
Well, it's great to have you back home at Arizona State, and we wish you and your team the best this year.
Thank you so much.
That's Sun Devil head coach Ryan Ray, the head coach of the Sun Devil cross country team, our guest on the Anderson Healey Show. Ray will rejoin me for the final segment of this week's show in just a moment. We're winding down this week's installment of the Anderson Healey Show from the Mountain America Credit Union Sun Devil Radio Network. I'm Tim Healey, the radio play-by-play voice of the Sun Devils. Glad you're with us this week. Arizona State Athletic Director Ray Anderson rejoins me now, and we hit the links, talk a little bit of golf here in the fall portion of their schedule, getting it underway. The third-ranked Sun Devil men's golf team of Coach Matt Thurman teed off its 23 fall season this past weekend and did so with a solid showing at the Healey Players Championship at Healey Country Club, which is just down the road from where I used to live up in the greater Seattle, Washington area. Sammamish, Washington is where the golf course is located. And Matt's team rallied on the third day, second day, the third round of competition last Sunday with a solid final round showing and ended up finishing second with a 54-hole total of 7 over par, 8 shots back of tournament winner Illinois. However, Arizona State did boast the individual winner in the tournament as Sun Devil junior Preston Summerhays prevailed in a playoff to beat Illinois' Max Herendeen after both tied with 54-hole totals of 5 under par 211 for Preston Summerhays, his second career tournament win, his 6th career top 5 finish, a terrific player now in his 3rd year at Arizona State, and he looks to me like he's primed and ready to lead Coach Thurman's team this year. Well,
you know, Preston's a wonderful young man, a great golfer, and comes from a golf family.
Right.
You know, it's in the DNA. Dad played professionally. Grace is on our women's team. He's phenomenal. So he's been in a lot of high-pressure situations. So you put him in a playoff and look out. You're likely to get thumped by Preston. So, you know, we got a golf program that is highly ranked. So it's no surprise they would go in and play and do so well because, you know, Illinois is a really good golf program as well. So off to a solid start and as a team and individually. But, yeah, Preston is something to watch.
Yeah.
He is really something to watch, and he's a terrific young man, as polite and as cordial as you'll find. So he's a real representative of Sun Devil Athletics golf.
When you say he's fun to watch, guess what? You're going to get to watch him this weekend because one of the added perks for Preston Summerhays for his victory in that tournament up at Healey Country Club in Sammamish, Washington, is he gets to play in this week's PGA Tour event, which will take place in Napa, California, wine country.
Isn't that nice that you can go out and have that kind of performance and the very next weekend be playing in a professional tournament up in the beautiful wine country of Northern California? College golf is a great, great sport, and there's some really wonderful opportunities for our student athletes.
No question about it. Don't look. college basketball season. We just started football, right? Well, college hoops just around the corner, and both the Sun Devil men's and women's basketball teams have solidified the non-conference schedules, their non-conference schedules that they'll be playing in November and December. For Coach Bobby Healey, guess what? Same old, another challenging schedule of non-conference games in the early part of the season. We mentioned on last week's show that the Sun Devils will open the men's basketball season on Wednesday, November 8th, with a nice matchup in Chicago against the Mississippi State Bulldogs as part of the 2023 Barstool Sports Invitational. Well, all told, ASU's 11-game non-conference schedule will include 6 of the 11 being played away from home, including the Thanksgiving weekend Las Vegas Showdown, in which Arizona State will play BYU on Thanksgiving night and either North Carolina State or Vanderbilt the following afternoon. A showdown with NCAA tournament opponent TCU in Fort Worth, Texas in mid-December as part of the Coast to Coast Challenge. And the Sun Devils will also make a return trip to San Diego to play our good friend Steve Lavin's University of San Diego Toreros on Saturday, December 9th. The Sun Devils were able to beat USD at home last December. And finally, a December 20th matchup at Footprint Center in downtown Phoenix as the Devils will take on the Northwestern Wildcats out of the Big Ten Conference as part of the Jerry Colangelo Hall of Fame Series. This is one of the things I love about Coach Healey's program. Every year he challenges his team with a tough non-conference schedule, and I'll tell you what, more often than not, his teams have responded to those challenges.
Yes, and that's by design. That's deliberate. You want to play tough competition as often and as early as you can because you then get in the conference and postseason play, and you're grizzled. You're not afraid. You're not intimidated by any environment or any team. So, and our fans want that. Most importantly, our student athletes want to play top competition. So Coach Healey has a history of going out and getting in the ring and swinging it with the big boys all the time, and here we go again. In this season, no different, and it'd be exciting.
Meanwhile, women's basketball has released its non-conference schedule as well, as head coach Natasha Adair's team will play 13 non-con games, including 4 of them against teams that were in postseason action just a year ago. The highlight of the women's basketball schedule in the non-conference, a Thanksgiving weekend trip to the Virgin Islands, where they will appear in the Paradise Jam in that tournament. They will play against NCAA tournament teams from a year ago, Texas and South Florida, as well as against a High Point team that was in the WNIT 1 year ago.
Yes, and again, those are great opportunities for our student athletes to get experience going to really fun, exotic places. But when you get there, you're going to play real basketball because nobody's down there just to lay in the sun. They're down there to compete, to have some fun, to be sure, but those are tough early season games, but those are the combined experiences that you want for our student athletes, and so we couldn't be happier for us.
We mentioned how the men are going to play in the Jerry Colangelo Classic down at Footprint Center on December 20th against Northwestern. Well, guess what? The Sun Devil women are part of that tournament as well. They are going to play a game as part of that event on the same day at 12 noon, as they will take on our football opponent this weekend, the Bulldogs of Fresno State, as their women's basketball team will take on Arizona State at Footprint Center on December 20th. With that, we bring down the curtain on this week's show. We want to send some thank yous out before we go. Thanks first and foremost to our executive producer, ASU Senior Associate Athletic Director Doug Tamaro, and to our outstanding engineer producer, Sean Crespin of the Mountain America Credit Union Sun Devil Radio Network. Thanks to our excellent group of Sun Devil Sports Network interns, Jacob Jones, Evan Reiser, and none other than Bobby Healey Jr. And thanks as well to our phenomenal show scheduler, Kim Nelson of Sun Devil Athletics. We'll be back next week with another edition of the Anderson Healey Show. We hope you'll make plans to join us. Great to visit with you, Ray. We'll talk to you next week.
Always a pleasure, and as we say, go Devils.
Go Devils. Till next time, for Ray Anderson, I'm Tim Healey. Thanks for joining us. So long, everybody.